It is time for Real News with Brian Ross. Brian joins us on a Thursday morning, and we take a look at news stories out and about. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning to you, Marshall. It's good to be here. First cup of coffee. Feeling good.
All right. Now, first, before we get to the real news portion, you have something coming up, I think, is it with the library?
Tonight, 8 o'clock, with Ira Rosen, an old friend and colleague. I used to work with him when I was at ABC, and he was there. But he has written a book called The Ticking Clock, all about behind the scenes at 60 Minutes. And he was, for a long time, the producer who did most of the major work with Mike Wallace, and describes Mike Wallace as just a terrible person to work for, but a good reporter.
Well, I can imagine those, what I'll call the old-time reporters. I would be willing to bet you they were rather indignant and grumpy and
not some old time. I tell you, the people that I work with who are no longer there, they would have a hard time existing in today's environment. They were tough-talking, mean, cruel, foul-mouthed, and they got things done.
Yeah. All right. So, well, that is
the business.
So that's tonight. And if people can just go to the library website,
Library and register as no cost. We don't mind if you chip in a few dollars, but it's in lieu of we've had a lot of appearances by authors over the years. We just can't do it with the pandemic, although we're getting closer, getting back to some feeling that maybe by the fall we can do this, but this is an online thing, and Ira has graciously agreed to tap us in and take questions and talk for an hour, 8 to 9, so have dinner, pour yourself a glass of wine, and listen to Ira Rosen.
All right. Now, you and I were talking about the conundrum Democrats were facing with getting rid of the filibuster or not, and the pros and cons, and also the scorched earth philosophy the Republicans have taken and will take it on this. It now really does appear that if Joe Biden as president doesn't get some more cooperation from Republicans, it does appear that he will do this. He will try this.
Well, the squeeze play is on. The Democrats plan to introduce in the Senate a number of bills that have passed the Democratic-controlled House on voters' rights and a number of other issues, including universal background checks for gun buyers and a number of issues that they plan to bring to the floor and see if the Republicans invoke the filibuster, which as of now, as they say, you can just make a phone call. You don't have to stand up like Jimmy Stewart did in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and speak for 72 hours. And once they do that, then they're all, everything's on the table again in terms of the filibuster. I've had a couple of suggestions. I was on Sirius Radio yesterday. A couple of people called and said, let's make it 55, not 60. Let's lower the limit for a filibuster. And I don't know why that couldn't be. But in any case, it's clear Republicans are not going to go along with any of the major programs that are being proposed by the Biden administration, including a huge infrastructure bill that would build highways and bridges, rebuild them, do 5G, Wi-Fi, places like our little town to improve it. And even though that might be something that a lot of Republican senators might want for their home states, at the moment, McConnell has enforced a kind of discipline, and there are just no Republican votes there.
Here's my take on it. After we spoke last week, the Republicans are going to slow things down anyways, or not allow things to pass anyways. So my feeling is that, and I always thought about this in Barack Obama's first term in office, that you know what, get rid of the filibuster. You've got 4 years, and do your best. Pass the legislation you want to pass, put everything into effect that you want to put into effect. If it works out in 4 years, you and your party will be reelected. If it doesn't work out in 4 years, you won't be reelected. But there's just too much no can do from the Republican Party when it comes to a Democratic president. And I know it's a big thing, but I figure, you know what? They're going to get stymied either way they do it, and if they can get Menashe, they're going to have to promise him a whole boatload of stuff to vote in favor of it.
There's going to be more new highways in West Virginia than you can believe.
That's exactly right.
But, Marshall, I was talking with our state senator, our senior senator, Senator Blumenthal, this week, and he was saying that one of the things that has led to this logjam was one of the things he had pushed for as part of a reform to end so-called earmarks where a member of Congress is going to have a specific bill for this bridge, the bridge to nowhere or this highway. And he said that was a mistake because there's no real incentive. If you restored earmarks and let congressmen sort of put in their favorite projects, you probably could get votes on both sides of the aisle.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't want to now skip over once again which is an epidemic in this country, and that's once again guns and mass killings of people. And it seems when one thing pops up or 6 or 8 people get shot, once again they come in clusters in this country.
These mass killings, and this is a plague for which there is no vaccine, but there are answers. We haven't done them. And let's not forget that the mass killings highlight the problem. But last year, 20,000 Americans died from wounds inflicted by guns. 24,000 Americans took their lives with guns. So, lots of guns means lots of death. It's just that simple. And some of the common sense suggestions are better background checks. How about making guns child-proof, so you had to have a fingerprint so you could use a gun? Nick Kristof of the New York Times has published the same article he first published in 2017 with the first round of shootings, and he says, some of the liberal proposals are counterproductive. Let's start calling it gun safety. Let's approach this like we did auto safety, and we got highway deaths down. There are real, actual things that all sides could agree upon that would make guns safer, harder to use, get rid of those huge capacity magazines, and these so-called weapons, like the one that was used out in Boulder, apparently, was one that was like a shortened pistol, but like almost a AR-15, but a pistolized version of it. Very deadly, very lethal, quick firing.
All right. Joe Biden is going to be holding his first press conference.
Yep, 1:15 today. I was talking yesterday with a couple of White House correspondents, John Carl, my old buddy from ABC, and April Ryan. They've got lots of questions. This is his first press conference since he took office. It's the longest sort of span of any sitting president in modern time before he's held a news conference, and apparently he's been boning up on this for days. He understands, the president does, that this would be a major moment, and he's going to have to take a bunch of questions, freewheeling, and he can prep for them, but with what's going on, there's no real script that he can sort of rely on. There's a lot going on, questions about guns, about the border, where his administration really has not done well so far. North Korea is firing off more missiles. Iran is intransigent. Russia and China belligerent. So he's got a lot on his plate, and it may be very hard with all of that for him to push through his own agenda, which is a great one in terms of social priorities, pre-K, universal, free, community college, lots of things he's pushing for, but the events of the day, as often happens, are taking precedence.
I was listening to BBC earlier this morning, and they pointed out something very interesting. That he has only been on TV answering questions 30% less than Donald Trump. But what the BBC pointed out was that Americans in the world no longer wake up every day to a president in the headlines with tweets and everything else like that. So on top of returning to a normal presidency after you have such an active presidency where somebody tweeted and loved the position and loved to be seen every day, that also makes it appear that Joe Biden isn't responding to the press enough. So it's an interesting conundrum. But
I agree. But the Trump presidency was abnormal by any standard, and this was a man, our former president, who was just obsessed with being in the news. He didn't care whether it was good or bad. He just wanted to be on the front page. He wanted to be on the evening newscast. He was just obsessed with that. That was not probably a great way to govern.
No, and you know what? Unfortunately, people got used to it. That's the bad thing. People got used to it. So now it's back. It's going to be interesting to see how he plays this with the press today. I'm sure.
1:15 today. I'm sure he'll be ready for a number of questions. There'll be some that April Ryan, who's with the Grio, she's a great reporter. She's always got one that comes out of nowhere. She's kind of our modern day Helen Thomas with questions that didn't quite expect but are very pertinent. So I said, "What are you going to ask him?" She said, "I'm not going to tell you. I don't want anybody else to steal it." But she's got a couple of good ones, she said.
And Major is back in the White House.
Yeah, exactly. I hope he's been trained better.
Yeah, he went back and had training for about 2.5 to 3 weeks, and Major is back. So the first dog is back. Okay.
All right. Well, I guess whoever he bit was apparently very forgiving.
All right. Well, Brian, have fun with the 60-minute thing at the Hotchkiss
That'll
Library.
be great. I'll have a chance to tune in. You're not in bed yet. Ira's a fascinating guy. It'll be great tonight, and we encourage everyone to listen in and throw questions to Ira. Put him at the other end of the questions on the other side of the camera. He's so used to asking or having asked tough questions. Now he should get a few himself. And he took out after some of the big stars. He was critical of Mike Wallace, no longer alive. He was critical of Diane Sawyer and Barbara Walters. Talked about their egos. But as you know, in our business, Marshall, lots of egos to go around.
That's it. It's an ego-driven business. All right, Brian, have a good week. We'll speak to you next week.
All right, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. That is Brian Ross and Real News here on Robin Hood Radio. You can listen to it on demand, robinhoodradio.com. Click on demand, click on Real News with Brian Ross.